Hello and welcome to the Art of Being Human. Today I'm going to start several segments on suicidology, the study of suicide, and how to prevent it. Basically, my focus is on how to prevent suicides, how to know what to do if a friend of yours gives you any indication that they're suicidal, how to help them. I'm very deeply concerned about what I see in society about the increase in attention given to suicide as a legitimate thing. I know in one of the New England states just recently there was a bill that people tried to pass that gave doctors the right to give prescriptions to people at their own request so that they could commit suicide if they wanted to. The bill was only defeated by 2 votes, and I'm thankful for the 2 votes that defeated it, but I think it's something that never should have been brought up. My feeling, of course, as a minister, is the fact that God gave life, and we don't have that right to take it away. Just because a person wants it taken away doesn't mean it should be taken away. And so I have done many suicide seminars in my career as a counselor in different places, and I know that my focus has always been at how to save lives, how to help prevent it, how to deal with a person who feels suicidal so they can get the help that they need, what to say, what to do. I mean, if somebody came to you and said, I would like to end it all up, my life is just a shambles, I'm a mess, I don't feel good, I'm in a lot of pain, whatever it is that they're telling you, and how do you help them? Do you just come out bluntly and say, are you planning to kill yourself? I wouldn't do it that way, but some people do. There are ways of talking to people to help them. You would be much gentler than that. But you need to know what their intent is, because if a person is planning on killing themselves, it is your responsibility to intervene, especially if you're a mental health professional or a medical professional. But even if you're not a professional, it really is your responsibility to intervene and get the person help, because the focus is still on life, not death. So it disturbs me that a person could go to a doctor and say, I want to kill myself, and have the doctor write out a prescription for 100 pills of a certain drug, and I won't name the drug, I know what it is. But, to give them 100 pills and tell them to drink it, put it in water and drink it quickly or within a certain amount of time, in this particular case I'm thinking about in 15 minutes, and then it will kill you without anybody there to help you, without anybody there to monitor you, without anybody there to try to get you help should you at the last minute change your mind and not want to die. A lot of people want to die, and then as they're about to do whatever they need to do to kill themselves, they change their mind. And if they change their mind, they're too helpless at that point to do anything, and they just die. Well, suicide is up. The rate of suicide is up, and there are several reasons for that. One reason is that the economy is really bad. And no matter how much they say the economy is improving and we're getting more jobs and more people are working, it may be improving for a certain segment of the society, but for everybody else it's not improving. And for a lot of people, it's continuing to get worse. And what happens in suicide is that you have a lack of hope. It's like nothing will ever be better. I can't make it better. And as a result of that, people who feel hopeless and they feel helpless, they are the ones without hope that are most likely to try to commit suicide. So the economy is one issue. The world situation doesn't seem to be getting any better either. And with wars, and the Bible talks about wars, rumors of wars, and what happens, and we can see it in our everyday life, how the weather patterns are changing and how everything in society is changing. That puts people on edge, and here again increases the lack of hope, which some people have. The economy and the world situation, the other things are we're close to the holidays. When you get close to the holidays, the rate always goes up. The reason for this is that during the holidays, everybody is supposed to be having a good time. They're enjoying themselves. They're buying gifts. They're receiving gifts. They're with their family and friends. They're going to parties. All of this happy stuff. But for most people, it's not happy stuff. There are people who are alone. There are people who can't afford to buy gifts. There are people who don't want to receive gifts. There are people who are in such a depression that the economy and the world situation as it is, and then you get the holidays on top of that, and they're supposed to feel good, but they can't feel good. And they feel guilty because they can't share in the happiness that every person seems to have. You know, I've talked to people who just hate the holidays. They hate them because they don't feel good in the holidays. Their personal situation is such that they're not happy. I know I've had students that go away from home and stay in a hotel until it's all over with, and then they come back because they don't want to face it. There are people who are in the midst of divorce situations or family situations, and they can't get together with people in family over the holidays. Their personal situations are such that they just can't do it. They feel badly, and they can't wait for the holiday season to be ended. They tend to want to shut themselves off, not do anything, not watch television, not listen to any Christmas music, none of the usual stuff. They just don't want to do anything like that, and they just shut themselves off. So that's kind of a sad thing. And then you see teenagers. Problems with suicide is also on the rise. So suicide is the second most common cause of death among teenagers. So what's going on with teenagers? If the family's in trouble, they are in trouble. If they can't get a job, if they're not doing well in school, and I think particularly of the following groups of students. Students who are new to college, they're freshmen, they've just started college within a few months, say they started in September or late August, and it's coming around. I know it's not December yet, but we're fairly close by. We're already in November. And what's going to happen is they may find that they can't hack the college life as well as they thought they could. Let's supposing that a teenager was a valedictorian or salutatorian of their class, and they gave one of the graduation speeches, and they're considered to be very bright, and they were accepted at a college of their choice. And then when they finally get to college, they find out that they're not any more special than anybody else. Everybody talks about how bright they are, how many scholarships they have, how well they're going to do, and they build up an expectation of themselves that they're going to live up to all of these things that people are saying about them. You know, we tend to try to be what people say we are. If somebody tells somebody else that they're very brilliant and they'll make a good doctor or a good lawyer, then they live off from that. And that's the expectation that they have of themselves, and that's the way they look at themselves. You look at yourself the way you think that other people look at you. Now, maybe they don't look at you that way, but if you think a person looks at you in a certain way, you look at yourself the same way as you perceive other people look at you, whether it's realistic or not. But after a student has gone through school and graduated and gotten all of the awards of being a good student and awards for this and that and scholarships, when they get to college, everybody else has done the same thing. You see, they're now average in a group of brilliant students, whereas in their high school they were brilliant and maybe the other students weren't as brilliant and they stood out for their intelligence. Now they get to college and everybody there has the same intelligence as they do and they don't stand out. And sometimes it's more difficult than they expected. They're not getting the praise of being so brilliant because everybody else is the same. And so as a result of that, they start to feel like they are failures. If a teenager or any student is expecting that they're going to do extremely well, they go away to school, they're homesick, it may be the first time they're away from home, and they find that they really can't cut it. They really don't fit in as well as they thought. They're really not as exceptional. They may be exceptional, yes, but so is everybody else around them exceptional. Then they start to feel like a failure. And one of the things that teenagers will do is they will try sometimes to commit suicide because they feel they're not as good as what they thought they were, and they feel like they're a failure. If a student does extremely well in school and they're getting practically all A's, sometimes they still may be suicidal, even though they have a lot to live for, and you can't imagine in your rational mind why they would want to take their lives when they're doing so well. But the thing is, if they make a miscue and they get a B instead of an A, or their grades drop for a while, or they run into a personal problem with a girlfriend, whatever it is, then they start to feel like a total failure. And when they feel like a total failure, they feel that they have let everybody down. And when they feel they've let everybody down, what do they want to do? Just get away from it. And the way they get away from it sometimes is to try to attempt suicide. The other thing you have to understand about the teenage brain, it is still under development. A human being, as they grow, their brain starts to rewire as they get toward preteens and teenager. And the frontal lobes, the frontal cortex, the place where they make decisions, it's still under construction. The cells aren't developed yet. You do not have a fully functioning brain until you're in your mid-20s. And starting toward the beginning of adolescence, 11, 12, around that age, the brain starts to rewire itself. It's not the same brain. By the time they finish, they're fully matured. But at the time that they're making critical decisions in terms of where to go to school, what they want to do is that when they grow up, during all of that, their brain is developing, and they cannot be so rational in their thinking. And so everybody says, why would a person do this as a teenager? They're old enough to know better. Their brain doesn't know better because their brain isn't there yet. It's not fully hooked up. It's like you're driving a car and somehow some of the wires aren't hooked up. The car doesn't work right, and it's not going to work right until it's fixed. The human brain is such that it's not going to work at full potential until all of those brain connections are made and all the rewiring is completed. So you cannot expect from a teenager the maturity that we think that we can expect. But that's not to say that some of them aren't mature. We're just saying this is a growing process, and sometimes they fall and they fail and you wonder why, and it doesn't make any sense. The brain has not yet been quite constructed enough for them to be able to do it the way the adult thinks they should be able to do it. So you have to have patience with that. Along with the teenagers, you have a lack of hope in pretty much all cases. So suicide is on the way up. And I absolutely believe that's the wrong thing to do. People should not be committing suicide, because what they don't understand, and what the teenage brain may not understand, is the finality of the decision. Once you do it, once you attempt it, you may not succeed, but once you attempt it, there's no turning back. I saw a program on television. It was quite disturbing. It was on a public television, and it talked about how people approach death and how they make the decision to commit suicide, and why they make the decision to commit suicide. And the fact is that the trend is turning in favor of that, and suicide is being romanticized, being like an adventure. And people tend not to realize that the finality is, and they were showing the attempt, or we didn't actually see an attempt of suicide, but they were discussing it. And before they were doing it, they were asked, do you realize that once you do this, there's no turning back? You can't come back. It's final. Now, children don't always understand what final means. We have children at the age of 7 and 8 years old trying to commit suicide, and they don't understand the finality of it. 7 and 8-year-olds do not understand the finality of it. They think somehow they can come back if they want to. Even preteens don't have a full understanding of what it means to be finally gone and never able to return. Their brains cannot conceive of it because their brains aren't yet developed enough to be able to conceive of it. The way they talk, you might think they know. And to a certain level, I think they do know. But deep down, there's always that change of heart. I can change my mind. I can remember when my father died, And my nieces and nephews were young. I think one of them was 4 and one was 6 or something like that. And they knew that he was gone, and they went to the funeral, and they made this comment: we're going to send up a balloon into heaven, and we're going to bring him back down. And they thought they could do it. And I felt so sorry for them in terms of their grief, in terms of all of our grief, but I also thought they cannot understand at that age what finality means. You have to be able to face finality. When you die, you're dead, and you're gone, and you won't return. But, you know, children just can't quite understand that. So the goal that I have, I'm going to teach this as if I was teaching a regular seminar. And the goal that I have is so that you can help others. If you suspect that they're suicidal, if they give you any indication that they're suicidal, you will know what to do. And then, of course, usually when I teach in a seminar, I get pretty deeply involved with it. But I also usually touch the lives of people who are suicidal, and I have no way of knowing that. You know, I have no way of knowing how many people, if I'm teaching in a seminar that has 200 people in it, how do I know that there might be a person in there that is suicidal, or several people that are suicidal, and I don't know that they are? So there's always a chance that even on television, as I'm talking about this and teaching it pretty much as a seminar, that a person here may be watching this that is suicidal. And my advice to you is this: don't do it. It's not worth it. And usually what happens when a person gets past that stage of feeling suicidal, they come out of it, their lives are much better, and they're forever thankful that they didn't do it. But if a person feels that they're going to do it and it's imminent and they don't want to stop it, the best thing to do is go to the emergency room of your local hospital. If I had a client of mine, a counselee of mine, that I thought was imminently suicidal and they knew they were going to do it and it was on their minds to do it, then I would bring them personally. I would take them personally to the emergency room of a hospital. And then tell them they have people on hand that are there that are specially trained that will come and talk with you and work with you and get you in for treatment, because you don't have to stay feeling stuck. You don't have to stay in that situation. So this class, it won't be morbid. There's a lot to tell you. There's a lot of interesting information. And what you do to help other people is it will give you a really good feeling that you saved a life. And I know I've saved several. And I'm not giving myself personal credit, but I know what to do and when to do it. If you have any questions about it or comments, you can email me here at the station. You don't even have to put your name on it. And I will try to answer your questions on the air, and I would never mention your name anyway. I'm not your therapist. I'm not telling you what you can do, what you can't do. I'm encouraging you not to do anything that would hurt yourself, but to get yourself professional help if you're in a situation where things seem to be too much for you. Because generally speaking, the crisis period is short. And then once you pass that crisis period, things get better and better and better after that, and you can return to healthy functioning again. So I think what I'll do is I'll close it here, because I'm about to get into some things and I only have 5 minutes left, and I don't want to get into something that I would need to stop. I think this will be an interesting study. I have all kinds of charts and things to show you, and I think that you will be happy that you watched it, because you will end up with a lot of information that will help you to help either yourself or to help other people. And it's critical. We don't want to start losing people. We don't want to think that it's a normal thing to lose people to suicide. It's just not a normal thing. And it doesn't have to be. And there's so much help available. There's no reason why anyone should get stuck in it and not be able to pull themselves out of it. I can understand if you can't pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. That's one process. One of the problems with depression is the fact if you feel depressed, you can't lift yourself up. If you could lift yourself up, you'd do it. And the fact that you can't lift yourself up, even though people tell you to do it, is one of the problems because it makes you feel worse instead of better. But professional help is available. You should make it your goal to get professional help if you need to, whether it's depression or anxiety or any other problem for that matter, not just suicidal behavior. So I'm going to get into more of the specific in the next segment, and the difference between my teaching you here and giving you a seminar is that you're not here to ask me questions. So I just encourage you, if you do have questions, since you're not here beside me to ask them, to email them in, and I will try to answer them on the air. So I hope this will be beneficial for you, and hopefully you'll join me next time.